YouTube, how are we doing? Welcome back to another episode, and in today's episode we're going to be exploring how I fucked up my nutrition this week, which heavily impacted my longest run to date of this training block. And here's something I personally got wrong over last weekend. I had a 22-kilometer run to do, and ultimately it wasn't the ideal setup. And if you really look at it, I got my fueling from a nutrition aspect, from a carbohydrate aspect, and from a gelling standpoint, completely wrong from the day before to running and in the 22-kilometer run, right? 22 kilometers for me personally isn't that big of a deal. It's not a big run, right? But I made it so much harder than I needed to do because I got my nutrition wrong on the Friday, and then that led into the Saturday of me being behind of what I needed to do. And then on the Saturday morning, I then carried on of getting it wrong by just purely mistake and just being busy, right? Just being not organized enough with what I was trying to do. Me and Megan went out Saturday morning for a coffee, for a walk around our local town, just for a stroll. And I actually hadn't had breakfast before going out, right? Which now meant the carbohydrate intake was low. I wasn't actually fueled well enough. I'm now putting more energy out, so more energy expenditure that's going out, and I'm still not eating. All I had was a coffee, right? Now I've got back, I'm now going to fuel and then go for my run. The problem was I was already behind the ball because Friday I was busy, shall we say, but again, I didn't stick to my eating times. I missed a couple of meals just because I got too involved in work, which again, problem here is didn't stick to my boundaries, didn't stick to my guidelines. So therefore, I've tried to wing my nutrition through that Friday because I knew I was behind it. So I tried to make it up from a dinner and a dessert aspect. Guess what? Still couldn't get enough in. Then I come to Saturday, went out early doors, went for a walk around. I actually spent a lot of time walking around the local town, grabbed a coffee, grabbed a bit of water, but most probably still dehydrated from the amount I needed to be consuming. And then from a nutritional aspect, from a carbohydrate aspect, I only consumed one meal, and it wasn't that big of a meal, and it was mainly just carb heavy, which again, yes, amazing, but also massively wrong because I needed actually more carbohydrates than I had consumed within that meal. So then when I got into that run in that 22 kilometers, really early on, I knew I was pretty much fucked because carbohydrate stores were pretty low. I was dehydrated. I wasn't actually fueled well enough from a actual aspect across like a 2-day window, meaning that run was already so much harder than it needed to be because my organization, my boundaries, and my actual sticking to the guidelines of what I needed to stick to were slightly out of whack, which then meant I was trying to wing the nutrition and trying to guess it by just cramming in as much in as possible. But yet now, for reflecting back, really fully aware that I was completely off of where I needed to be. And then 10 kilometers into that run, I'm trying to gel and actually over gel because I knew I was behind on it. The run was actually so much harder than it needed to be. And then by the time 22 kilometers were done, I was absolutely ruined. I'd ran in a slightly higher heart rate zone. I was sat in like high ends of zone 3, which wasn't ideal because it was meant to be a zone 2 run. Timings I still had to pull back, so my natural time was much slower, but yet I was in a higher heart rate zone. Again, that was down to fatigue before even setting out because I got the nutritional aspect wrong on Friday. I got it wrong on the Saturday morning. I was dehydrated, which then combinates of heart rate being through the roof, pacing then has to be pulled back, fatigue sets in earlier, glycogen stores are just absolute rock bottom because you've torn through them because you're already fatigued, so your body's working 10 times harder than it needs to be. And that is exactly why you can't be winging your nutrition. And speaking to so many guys and girls over the past week or so around their own nutrition, around trying to get their body and performance aligned so they can do the things they want to do, look the way they want, feel the way they want. There's a lot of winging nutrition and just guessing what's going on, and you really can't guess what you're trying to do. You actually need complete strategy. You need a complete tangible focus of what's going to move you from A to B as best as you can. Because if you haven't got that in place, you are guessing, and when you guess, you do random, and when you do random, you get random results. So there's never ever a flow of consistency, which naturally will slow your speed of success and your result down, whether that be getting yourself into the best shape of your life or performing far greater within a certain fitness event, right? You can't now guess. Guessing gives you random, and random gets you random. If you now want more consistency, if you want to see a far better result, if you now want to see you move, not necessarily running, but a result for that to move at a quicker speed, you now need complete strategy and structure laid out in front of you so you can go from A to B as smoothly and as quickly as possible, because the reality is results are actually achievable in such a quicker period of time when you are truly dialed in with what you need to be doing. But most of you are just now really guessing what you're now really doing on a daily basis, which slows the speed up, causes a lack of consistency, causes a lack of momentum. You're winging it, then you think, oh, fuck it, I'm going to hit the fuck it button because I'm not seeing the results I want. But that's your own problem, and that's your own cause, because you're now just winging it. So here's what I actually recommend doing. And this will now come down to a few aspects. Over the next while, I'm going to break this down for you. So a lot of this is going to now come down to the structure you now have within your weeks. The reasoning behind why now being at your best, living in the best shape of your life is so important, and performing at your best, right? So a lot of this is now going to be driven from the reason why you're now really doing this, because it's so easy to now just be like, yeah, I just want to get in shape. Yeah, I just now want to become even better at running. But the reality is that's not going to happen, and it's not going to stick from a nutritional standpoint, and you're going to continue to wing it when there's no real meaning or purpose behind what you're now doing, and actually having a clear vision of what that now looks like of you being at your best and how that's now positively going to impact you in your life, right? So when it comes to this, point number one, we now need to have more structure in our week. And this is now not just thinking I need to train more, I now need to just eat better. It's now actually looking at the whole landscape of your week and being aware of what you've now got coming up, where your nutrition now needs to sit in order to get yourself into the best shape of your life and perform at your best. This now comes down to how to navigate yourself socially when it comes to nutrition, because you're going to be in certain environments that may set certain triggers off around alcohol, around food, right? And you now need to understand how to navigate that. And within that, you then now need to look at how can I actually get the best out of my nutrition if I now need to start banking calories, if I've now got social aspects on, or if you've got holidays coming up and you now want to accelerate things. It's like you've now got to look at the trade-off effect, and this is part two. You now need to look at the trade-off effect of what you're willing to compromise and what you're not willing to compromise, because the reality is getting into the best shape of your life, being and performing at your best. Yes, you do have to remove stuff, and that doesn't now mean you remove macronutrients, but you may consume less chocolate, you may consume less alcohol for a certain time being, you may need to go out a little less, right? But that needs to be understood. And that should all be nailed into the fact of understanding point three of why you're now really doing this, why this is now really important to you, what it is now going to give you across your life, and how it's actually going to positively impact your life as well. Because if you're not looking your best, if you're not feeling your best, you're not performing at your best, I can guarantee you are holding yourself back personally and professionally, which now means your confidence is going to now be knocked, and it's going to stop you from living the life that you now really want. So the key driver of all this is getting yourself into the best shape of your life and actually understanding fact one, fact two, and fact three, which then is going to allow you to really accelerate these things forwards. And then you go into the aspects of nutrition and training and movement, because you've now, with the three-step process there, have laid the foundations, which then is going to allow you to actually understand what you need to do from a nutritional aspect within your calorie deficit, within your macros, within your overall calorie intake, right? And also from a train aspect of how to get yourself performing at the best you want and looking at the best that you want, right? And this is why we now need to break these things down into stages and into blocks, right? Because you can't now just have it all in one go. It now has to be built out into a process that's going to allow you to go from A to B as smoothly as possible, and then from B to C. But that's not going to happen if you wing your nutrition and you wing your training approach. And I'm seeing and hearing way too much that nutrition training is being winged, and it's very much hit and hope, which is causing your results to stagnate and causing you to also not see the results you want, all because that you're now winging it and that's now having a knock-on effect with the speed that now goes at. So what I'd now do from a nutritional aspect, I'd now look at things very much like, okay, calories for this week, calories across the following week, calories across the third week, across the fourth week, what that actually looks like from a monthly cycled process. And then I'd be looking at the macronutrient breakdown for that, that's going to allow you to, one, manage your lifestyle effectively, do the things you do the things that you still love to do, but also still allows you to get into the shape you want. And then from a training aspect, look across the 30-day window, what needs to be done. I can tell you now what does not need to be done is endless amounts of cardio and high intensity training. What actually needs to be done is, the aim of the game is for you to get strong as fuck. So lift as much weight as humanly possible. Each week, try and progress that from either sets, reps, tempos, or weight, which then is going to allow you to, again, understand where the data is coming from, understand that there's many channels and avenues of progress. Because sometimes the weight on the scale is not going to drop. Sometimes the overall performance, there might not be a tangible on it, but if you can now see your improvement from a training aspect, you can see your consistency with you logging your food, then you're going to always be winning the game, because the results will always happen once the behavior has been embedded. And something I always say to my clients is, behavior first, results second. And results take time, but the more you integrate the behavior that you now want to live by, the quicker the results will happen. Not just short term, but long term. Because everyone wants results. Everyone wants to look better and feel better and perform better, right? But the reality is, if you're not behaving in those ways and you're not crystal clear of what that now looks like, then you're ultimately just screwing yourself, because you're just delaying yourself from what you really want to be seeing. So we now need to collect as much data as humanly possible to play off of, because there's so many avenues of success, and that also gives you a feedback loop of where you need to improve, where you need to adjust, which allows you to go on that route much faster than if you was just guessing it. From a nutrition aspect, right, is that you need to have a specific strategy across 4 weeks of the month, across a 30-day window, right, of knowing exactly what you're going to be doing in terms of that nutritional aspect, in terms of your calories, in terms of your macros, in terms of your socials, right? Because these things shouldn't actually go by the wayside. If you now have a real strategy in play around all of this, meaning that you should exactly know like what events you've got coming up, what social events you've got coming up, what trips away you've got, if you've got networking, if you've got a holiday coming up, what that actually then looks like in terms of what you need to be doing nutritionally, because it will require different things. I've literally just got off a call just before this video with a client, and he's got his son's birthday coming up on Thursday. So what we've now done is backloaded some calories. We've banked calories. So we've pulled 200 calories out of his day every single day prior to his son's birthday, which is, I believe, is on Thursday. And that means he's then got an extra amount of calories to spend on that day, meaning when it comes to the end of the week, his nutritional targets have been met, but he's still been able to eat out socially and celebrate his son's birthday, meaning, 1, he's got to spend good time with his family. 2, celebrate his son's birthday. 3, met his own targets. At the end of the week, he's not only just going to see the scales go down, but he's also going to be seeing his behaviors were aligned. He's stuck to the actual consistency of the game plan, meaning there's so many avenues of success within just a nutritional standpoint that he's always going to be winning the battles. And when you can operate like that, and when you have those specific metrics in place and a specific game plan like that, you simply cannot miss, which means he's stepped away from guessing prior to joining B2 to now having structure, having more purpose about him, and having a crystal clear game plan of how he just now needs to navigate his training and his nutrition for him to now get into the best shape of his life and then go on to do a sub 2-hour half marathon. And that's how you win the game, and that's how you step away from guessing what you are doing. If you're like, yep, I want to get strong, I want to get fit, I want to become the fittest, healthiest and leanest I have ever been, and simply have body and performance aligned, but you're wondering how to really get it all to stick and be consistent, even though you've watched the past videos, well, here's your opportunity. Hit that link below, and what I'm doing is I'm offering over the next 2 weeks 3 free calls for you to have a personalized game plan built out for you, from you to getting into the best shape of your life to then having the performance to match. So if this sounds like you, hit that link below and book yourself in so we can get you crystal clear on a specific game plan that's going to allow you to have the body and performance to align.